Hello, and Christ is in our midst. Today I'd like to speak with you about St. Gregory Palamas. St. Gregory is celebrated on the second Sunday of Great Lent, and he has an very important role in the history of our church. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He was born in 1296 in the city of Constantinople, which is modern Istanbul in Turkey. At the time, it was the most important city in the eastern part of the Roman Empire. It was where the emperor had his seat of government. And Gregory was a brilliant student. His father worked for the emperor, and Gregory was a star pupil. And so it was expected that he would have also a career working in the government, working for the emperor. But when he was 20 years old, he decided instead that he wanted to become a monk. And so he went far away to Mount Athos, and he lived as a monk, learning the life of prayer, having various teachers. And he spent about 30 years as a monk, traveling in various places on Mount Athos, also in Thessalonika, in various places in Constantinople. But his main goal over those 30 or so years was to deepen his life of prayer and learning about the Orthodox tradition of prayer, especially what's known as prayer of the heart, or Hesychasm, which comes from the Greek word meaning silence. So there was a whole tradition of learning how to pray in the Orthodox world, and Gregory became a devotee of all the teachings of the fathers related to the inner life of prayer, the prayer of the heart, which is often centered around the Jesus prayer, which I've told you about before. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. And that prayer repeated over and over again, and how to integrate that prayer into your life. This is a big part of the teaching of the fathers that Gregory was learning as a monk over the period of those 30 years. Now, there came a time, though, where, and there are a lot of details about his life that I can't share with you right now, but there came a time when Gregory became involved in a big controversy, because there were some who believed that this teaching about prayer was not correct, that it was wrong, and that people should not be taught this kind of prayer. Especially, they should not be taught that this kind of prayer brings you into direct communication and communion with the living God. There was a sense by some that God was so far away that it was impossible to have that kind of direct personal communion with God that Gregory and the other monks on Mount Athos described. So there was a period where, in fact, a long period, almost 15 to 20 years or so, where Gregory was involved in a controversy defending the practices of the monks on Mount Athos and this life of prayer, of Hesychasm, around the Jesus prayer. And Gregory had a lot of opposition, sometimes from bishops, other priests, the emperor himself, so that at one point he spent 4 years in prison because of his teachings. And he wasn't let out until, let's say the controversy started sometime around 1331. He was freed from prison, those last 4 years in prison, in 1347. And the controversy calmed down. The people, the bishops, the emperor, the new emperor, recognized that Gregory was right, that these teachings on prayer did indeed make it possible for us to have a direct encounter, communion with the living God. There was a council of the church that was held to uphold this teaching. And Gregory was appointed then to be the Archbishop of Thessalonika in northern Greece. But just at that time, he was traveling back and forth between Thessalonika and Constantinople, and his ship was captured by the Turks. The Turks were threatening the city of Constantinople in those years, and Gregory was captured, and he spent a year in prison as a captive of the Turks. But he used that time also to learn about Islam, and he had some very interesting conversations with his Turkish captors about Islam and Christianity. And finally, after about a year, a ransom was paid. He was released. He was sent back to Thessalonica. He took up his role as the Archbishop of Thessalonica. and then he died in the year 1359. And to this day, on the second Sunday of Great Lent in Thessalonica, his relics, his body, is still in a casket in the cathedral in Thessalonica, in a silver casket, and the casket is taken out and is processed around the city with great honor. So he was the bishop of Thessalonica, but he has this important role in our church, the Orthodox Church, for defending the teaching that the fathers had about prayer and about the aim of prayer, which is to have communion with the living God. God is beyond our ability to understand, but still we can have real personal communion with God, and that's what Gregory defended. So Christ is in our midst. Have a good week.